I'm Nintendo.
And I'm Sega.
This is Console Wars! I don't know about this.
We could use the money.
It's way too competitive.
Well, and you're good at competitions.
I don't know. It's kind of dumb.
Dumb? It's a time-honored American tradition.
Yeah, but hot dog eating contest? Seems a bit out of my element.
Well, that's why I'm gonna train you, so you can get better at it.
So why don't you do this?
Because I don't like veggie dogs.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to talk to you about that. Can't I just eat a regular hot dog?
No can do. You entered a veggie dog eating contest. It's lesser known, so it doesn't have that many competitors yet. Gives you more of a chance of winning.
Is it even healthy to eat a bunch of these veggie hot dogs?
What, like regular hot dogs are healthy? Think about it this way. It's better for the animals. And you know who likes animals?
Babes?
Babes.
So how are you gonna train me to eat these hot dogs?
I'm bringing in the big guns. Come on in, boys. Somebody entering a hot dog eating contest? We can teach you to put away a few, wieners.
Hopefully more than a few.
Officer Pastrami, Chef Salami. I didn't know you guys were competitive eating coaches.
Yes, that's why we are here. We're competitive eating coaches.
Man, that makes me feel so much more relaxed. Man, there's a lot of air in this ketchup bottle.
Okay, the first thing is, the hot dog may be cold, so you need to use your hands to warm it up in an up and down motion.
Yeah, and then put some hot breath on it.
What?
Do the hand motion.
And the breath.
I don't think... Oops.
No, don't do that!
That's the worst thing you can do!
Man, you guys seem a bit worked up. Why don't you take a break?
Oh, I need a cold shower.
Yeah, me too.
Maybe let's change gears a little bit. You ready to see your new competitive eating shirt? I present to you the New Jersey Devil.
Oh, what happened to the Optimus Prime rib?
Yeah, I thought about it, but it didn't make sense because robots don't eat. Besides, this way people know you're from New Jersey.
Well, can't I just be the Jersey Devil then? I feel like New Jerseyan doesn't really work.
Well, it has to be New Jerseyan Devil because that sounds like Tasmanian Devil.
Oh, I get it. Tasmanian Devil. I mean, Taz did eat a lot in that show, Taz-Mania.
Yeah, I used to watch that show all the time. Remember the video game they made of that?
Yeah, that was a great game. For the Super Nintendo.
No, it was better for Sega Genesis.
What? That's it? Are we doing this?
Yep.
Taz-Mania for the Super Nintendo.
Versus Taz-Mania for the Sega Genesis.
Taz-Mania is an American cartoon produced by Warner Brothers Animation from 1991 to 1995. The show followed the adventures of Looney Tune character Taz, the Tasmanian Devil, and his family in the fictional land of Tasmania. The show was a success, producing more than 60 episodes, and along with that, video games.
There were games for Game Boy, Game Gear, and the Sega Master System. The games we're looking at today are the games for Super Nintendo, developed by Visual Concepts, and the Sega Genesis game, developed by Recreational Brainware. These games are very different.
The Sega Genesis game was a 2D side-scrolling platformer, and the Super Nintendo version played more like a racing game. Which one was better? Let's find out.
Well, the Super Nintendo game looks great.
Taz looks fantastic, just like he did on the show. And he's got lots of great animations when he's running, or doing the tornado. He also has lots of unique animation when he gets hit. Other characters from the show are also here, and they look great too. But what really catches your eye are the levels. They all look like they could be right out of the show. But it's not just that, it's the way the levels look when you run through it. The constant scrolling, the scaling of objects and characters. It's very fluid, looks great, and there's no slowdown. For having a great look and even better animation, my game has best graphics.
No way! Sega Genesis game looks better.
Now this is a good looking game. Taz looks just like his cartoon counterpart. He also has lots of great animations, from his walk to his tornado. And he also does animations after getting hit. The other characters from the show look great here too. And these levels are fantastic. So many different locations, lots of variety for your eyes. It keeps things from getting boring.
Well, it looks nice, but I think it's pretty obvious. My game looks better.
I mean, just look at these games side by side. You can't deny the Super Nintendo game looks more exciting. Taz running on Sega Genesis, Taz running on Super Nintendo. Taz doing the tornado on Sega, Taz doing the tornado on Super Nintendo. Mine just looks a lot cooler.
Your game might look cool at first, but it gets old fast.
Like I said before, the Sega Genesis game has lots of different looking levels. Lots of different settings, so it doesn't get boring to look at. Levels on Super Nintendo all pretty much look the same. You're always on levels of grass, desert, or snow. Grass, desert, or snow. It's pretty much just a color swap. Maybe it's day, maybe it's night, but they still look the same. And the background pictures, the part that isn't scrolling, is either rocks or mountains. Rocks or mountains. Repetitive. I know it's a different style of game, but maybe they could have put Taz in a city, a jungle, a cave, a Denny's, anything else. The look of the Super Nintendo game just gets old fast. Give me the Sega game, which does more than a few color swaps.
Variety is the spice of life, and it makes my game look better.
Even though the scrolling on Super Nintendo looks good, it gets old fast. With more of a varied look throughout the game, best graphics go to Sega Genesis.
Well, my presentation is great.
The Super Nintendo game starts off just like an episode of Looney Tunes, and the title cards for every level have the same Looney Tunes style. There's even various characters and animations in each title card. And after the credits, you get a Looney Tunes inspired, that's all folks. The on-screen clutter during gameplay is kept to a minimum. You have the time remaining, life bar, score, Kiwis left to catch, and an icon of objects you pass. After you beat a level, Taz says something and passes out. Then you see everything you ate escape and you see your total score. All in all, solid presentation.
It's not as good as the Genesis presentation.
The game starts off with Taz eating part of the Sega logo. I love when Sega games do that. The title screen looks like it could be right out of the show. And then the game starts off with a cutscene of Taz's family from the show. There's no cutscene in between levels, instead you get a map of Taz-Mania that follows your progress in the game. There's even a brief comedic ending put in for good measure, and there's very little on-screen clutter during gameplay. You just have your life bar with the score below, and then you have your number of lives. And the Taz logo by the lives is animated for a nice touch.
My presentation's definitely better, because my game has a story.
That's barely a story.
It's more than yours. Taz went running. What is he, Forrest Gump?
Oh, he can't be Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump was real.
Whoa, careful.
What? I was gonna say really nice guy.
Oh,
Yeah, a really nice real.
oh, that's not cool.
What? I was gonna say really nice rich guy.
Oh,
Yeah, a really nice rich guy who was retired.
okay, you definitely can't say that.
What? I was gonna say a really nice rich guy who was a retired Shrimpo captain.
Oh,
A really nice rich guy who was a retired Shrimpo captain, and he was real.
okay, I've heard enough. Let's get back to why my presentation's better.
Let's look at the title screen menus. The Sega game has a menu, start game or options. Nice and simple. The Super Nintendo game doesn't have a menu at all. That's fine maybe, you just hit start and begin the game. But there is an options menu. Where is it, you ask? At the title screen, you have to hit select to access the options. But you have no way of knowing that. I didn't know that until I looked up cheat codes for this game. Why not just have a menu at the title screen? Why the secrecy?
Can't deny my presentation.
The Sega game just has more. The Sega game actually has a story. The Super Nintendo has none. The Sega game has cutscenes. The Super Nintendo game has none. A title card with some characters is okay, but give me story, give me pictures, give me charm. For having a little more effort, best presentation goes to Sega Genesis.
Well, this is a category I definitely plan on winning. The music on Super Nintendo is great.
It fits the tone of the show. It suits Taz well. These songs have a good groove.
Yeah, but I like my music better. It goes in a different direction.
The music on Sega is laid back. It can also be a bit zany. It's also got a nice groove.
Wow. Seriously?
Yeah, good stuff, huh?
That's some of the most dull music I've ever heard in my entire life.
You call this good? And this track hurts my head.
What? I kinda like it.
Fine. But even if you like that nonsense, you can't deny how bad the sound effects are.
The sound effects enemies make aren't their footsteps or grunts. It's instruments. Every move you make has a lame sound effect. The sound effects just take over the music and hurts your ears. I guess they were trying to emulate the old cartoons with the sound effects, but this is too much. You're constantly bombarded with bad sound effects. It really makes you not want to play. How did they come up with this junk?
I need to come up with the perfect sound effects, so Yoko won't leave me. No. No! This won't do. Why is this so bloody hard? That's it. I've done it. I've done it! Yoko! Come back, baby! So at least the sound effects in Super Nintendo make sense.
They're sounds you'd expect. They're not overwhelming or incredibly loud. Just good old sound effects.
There's no denying, my sound is better.
Since the Sega music is dull, and is also loaded with terrible sound effects, for actually having good songs and sound effects, best sound goes to Super Nintendo.
The gameplay on Genesis is solid.
The Sega game is a 2D side-scrolling platformer. You play as Taz as you get through every level. This game could easily be played with a 3 or 6 button controller, as you have one button to jump, one to cyclone, and one for various actions like roaring, a flame attack, moving boxes, or pulling levers. You can hurt enemies with the cyclone or just by jumping on them. And Taz eats everything in this game. He eats enemies, power-ups, and even bombs. You have all these different types of levels you need to get through, with lots of different enemies. And then occasionally, you have a boss match.
It's not incredibly innovative, but it's still solid all around. And that cyclone attack makes things interesting.
The cyclone attack plays a lot like the spin dash in Sonic, but it's immediate. No need to charge it up. You can even do it in the air to attack, or help you jump further. It's very easy to use. It can take out most enemies, and can also destroy objects that hurt Taz, like bombs. But it can also destroy power-ups, so you need to use it sparingly. It gives the game a good balance to make sure you don't constantly cyclone. Having lots of platforms also ensures that. You'll be jumping from platform to platform a lot in this game.
That song and dance has been done so many times before. My game definitely wins gameplay with innovation.
This game truly goes for innovation by having Taz play like a racing game. You're not racing against opponents either, you're racing against time. The object of the game is simple. Eat the kiwis before the time runs out. That's it. Kiwis show up randomly as you progress along the stage, so you have to keep moving. If you pass one, don't worry, there's more than a required number in the stage. And the controls are simple. One button to jump, one button to eat things, one button for your tornado attack, and one button for the brakes.
It's simple and fun, but let me go into the details. There's a lot going on.
First off, the life bar. Yeah, it plays mostly like a racing game, but there's lots of ways to lose your life. Cars, enemies, running into objects, and using the tornado all take up life. Lose all your life, and it's game over. Every 100,000 points gives you another continue. You can restore life from kiwis, items, or random birds. The use of enemies is pretty creative too, like this pterodactyl that takes you back, or this girl kissing Taz, or a guy that covers Taz's eyes but actually blocks the screen too. Cool stuff. And the tornado isn't really used just to attack. It's used to break out of attacks or move faster and find kiwis. And since you move pretty fast and can't see things at that speed, you have an icon that appears when you pass kiwis or vehicles. There's some items that can also help you along the way, but sometimes you can get hurt trying to get an item. This is all done with the clock ticking, but you can get extra time from red birds.
There's a lot going on there, but your game's got some problems.
One problem is catching the kiwis. The controls are a bit off. You don't always catch a kiwi when you're right next to them. Sometimes it just feels like luck when you catch a kiwi. You'll mostly be button mashing, just hoping to catch a kiwi. So prepare to be frustrated when you're surrounded by them and you catch none. Another problem with the game is Taz's animations when he gets hit. You have to button mash the D-pad to get Taz back to normal. Otherwise, the animations last way too long, and it really eats up time. Another problem is the scrolling. Sometimes the screen goes too high and you can't see what's ahead of you. This leaves you open to attacks and makes you lose track of any items. And the tornado takes away health? How lame is that? It doesn't take away health in the Sega game.
Well, your game has problems too.
One word: balance. This game has some of the easiest levels ever and some of the most difficult levels ever. Some levels are easy and a bit on the boring side. Then you have the levels in the mines, some of the most frustrating levels in gaming. Your reflexes need to be perfect for the minecart level, and I mean perfect. Otherwise, you die, and you will die a lot until you learn that pattern. It makes the mine levels in Donkey Kong seem like a walk in the park. The other mine level contains some of the most difficult platforming ever. Your jumps need to be perfect on these moving platforms. It's incredibly frustrating.
It may be frustrating, but it's not as mindlessly repetitive as your game.
All you do in the Super Nintendo game is catch kiwis. That's it. Sure, there are enemies and obstacles in your way, but it's the same boring objective every stage. Catch kiwis. You have to do the same thing over and over on levels that look identical. You know what that is? Boring. There's no bosses. Boring. No variety. Boring. Just the same thing over and over. It gets old. Fast. The Sega game changes things up. It has boss battles. It has variety. It keeps you playing so you can see what's next. You don't need to see what's next in the Super Nintendo game because you already know. Catch more kiwis. And not including the bonus levels, there are 12 stages in this game, and the goal is always the same. Catch kiwis. But maybe the bonus stages change things up. Nope. You still have to catch kiwis. This is completely ridiculous.
I happen to find that quite enjoyable.
Are you kidding me? Compared to my game, that's so boring.
On Sega, here's a desert level with lots of platforming. On Super Nintendo, here's a desert level where you catch kiwis. On Sega, here's a snow level that's so icy the surfaces are slippery. On Super Nintendo, here's a snow level where you catch kiwis. On Sega, here's a water level where you have to jump from moving logs in order to progress. On Super Nintendo, here's some water and you have to catch kiwis. Here's a grassy level on Sega with a boss fight. And here's a grassy level on Super Nintendo where you have to catch more kiwis.
You have to admit it, a Taz racing type game just doesn't work.
It was a weird decision to make the Super Nintendo game a racing game. It was definitely bold, but it didn't work, and it gets old really fast. It might have worked if this was just a mini game, but as a whole game on its own, it just doesn't work. You'll be tired of this game in the first 5 minutes.
There's just no denying that my gameplay is better.
Since the Super Nintendo game is the same thing over and over again, and the Sega game isn't perfect, but it's still a solid experience, best gameplay goes to the Sega Genesis.
While both games are incredibly different, one is better, and that game is Taz-Mania for the Sega Genesis.
It has better graphics with a more varied look. It has better presentation with actual story, cutscenes, and some extra charm. It does have a dull soundtrack and questionable sound effects, but it more than makes up for it with its gameplay. It's simple and doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it plays just fine, and it's overall an enjoyable experience. The Super Nintendo game tried to be different, but ultimately failed. It could work as a fun mini-game, but definitely not a whole game. Maybe if the game changed things up occasionally, it would be better, but it just gets old, fast. Best Taz-Mania game goes to Sega Genesis.
can't believe that I lost.
But you can still win the hot dog eating competition.
How? We spent the whole time comparing video games. I'm not ready. I didn't even get a training montage.
Are you kidding me? You have been training. You've been playing games with one of the greatest eaters ever. Just do what Taz would do.
You know what? You're right. I'll just do what Taz would do. Do what Taz would do.
Alright, today's contest is a doozy. Who can eat the most veggie dogs in 10 minutes? And we only have 2 competitors. We really should have promoted this thing. Over here we have the New Jerseyan Devil. And over here we have the human vacuum. On your marks, get set, go! And there they are, chewing. Lots and lots of chewing. It's a bopping. And another angle with more chewing. Yes, even another angle with even more chewing. Let's see the crowd. They love it. And here's one guy just chewing by himself. And the other guy also chewing by himself. They are showing us what men who eat hot dogs can really do. And time is up.
I did it. I did it just like Taz. How did I do?
And only 2 hot dogs for the New Jersey guy. 2 hot dogs.
2? I guess I shouldn't have spent all that time on the condiments. It's really hard to get the ketchup out of this bottle.
And we have 100 hot dogs for the human vacuum. A new world record. 100 hot dogs? That's so sad. This guy must be so lonely.
Oh my god, you eat so many veggie dogs? You must really like animals. I'm in room 302.
Works every time.
100 hot dogs? That's incredible.
Oh, I knew I could do it. The key was keep eating. Fast. Oh.
Are you okay, human vacuum?
Yeah, happens all the time. I'm as good at doing 5 minutes.
Wow, can't believe he died from eating hot dogs.
Yeah, and I can't believe they put his competitive eating name on his headstone.
Well, at least he went out with a bang. Literally, his stomach exploded. There were hot dogs everywhere.
Man, just thinking about those hot dogs flying everywhere really has me kind of hungry.
Yeah, I could go for some veggie dogs.
You know, I don't really like them, but I was gonna say the same thing.
We just can't eat too many. Don't want to end up like this guy, am I right?
Because of that, he did the thing.
He ate too many hot dogs and his stomach exploded. All over the audience. It's like a Gallagher show, but funny. It was hilarious.
Thanks for checking out our latest video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks to Xavier TheLycan for donating the 2 games to us. And thanks to everyone who suggested Taz-Mania. And keep those other suggestions coming. We will get to them. Also, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more console wars goodness. Later.
What? Alright. Is it coming off?
Fucking mustache.